Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. I know it's Monday, but hopefully, regardless of what day of the week it is, you guys are making the most of it and having yourselves a great start to your day. Got you an update on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Monday. A couple interesting topics to kind of talk on. One is a severe weather threat for areas of the Western Carolinas and even North Georgia we need to watch, and Eastern Tennessee, but I'm really watching western areas of North Carolina, and some of this energy could drift into South Carolina later in the evening. Also, just watching a pretty large area that could see just general pop-up showers and storms. And then there's two other areas, southern Texas and then western Montana, that could have a higher chance to see some severe weather today. We'll talk on that. A little bit of a flooding risk for certain areas, really the same areas that have seen it, the southern high plains region. And then we'll even talk about smoke, wildfire smoke. We have wildfires ongoing in portions of Canada, Quebec. Basically, the smoke from these wildfires, the flow aloft, meaning the directional pull in the upper levels of the atmosphere, is actually going to help pull some of this smoke down into the northeast later this afternoon, this evening. In fact, you guys have already experienced it, but I think as we get into later this evening, it's going to get much thicker, and you'll definitely notice that as we get later into the day. But we're going to talk about a couple things. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You ever consider joining the channel? The join tab's under the video, or it's right here on my YouTube header. I've had a couple people join over the last week, and I really appreciate you folks. It's a great way to support my channel, especially in these slower times, so thank you for considering that. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rolling. Let's take a look at water vapor loop at what's going on. I thought I had my little cursor up, but apparently I do not. So dry air is pushing in right here. You see this push in from the north moving south. That is a push of dry air. This is actually being aided by this upper low that continues to spin. You see this little bit of a, well, it's not a little, it's a pretty large, broad spin off the coast of the northeast. This is actually helping pull down this dry air. There's a little bit of moisture associated with this too, which these areas in Michigan, Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan need this moisture. A little bit of light rain action ongoing. And then on the back side of this upper low, a piece of energy will kind of swing down here, and there'll be a little bit of a kind of a northwesterly flow, meaning some storms will fire up in this area of western North Carolina today, most likely. And then we just have all kinds of crazy outflow boundaries and leftover boundaries out here in Texas, where you just got wild flows aloft, meaning there's just different pools and different pools in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So storms are moving in all kinds of crazy direction. But we'll watch southern Texas, which has better surface heating, higher Cape values down here, for a better chance for severe weather in southern Texas today. And then we'll watch Montana. A little bit of a flow out the south will move in, and will support the chance for some strong to severe storms. Wildfire smoke will drift into the northeast today also, like I mentioned earlier in the video, but kind of what's going on at the surface, what's actually falling from the sky. Light to moderate rain is falling in Maine, almost said Montana, and Maine, New Hampshire, eastern Mass this morning. Not a, soaker necessarily. Now, some areas are seeing a little bit more heavier rain in Maine. But, you guys would probably take the rain when you can get it. It was quite dry there for a while, but you're making up for lost ground. But areas like Pennsylvania, western New York State, Ohio, and many other areas need the rain. There's a little bit of light shower activity in association with this cold front that's moving down. And just some slow-moving, weak flow aloft, which means the showers and heavier rain is very slow moving here in Texas this morning. A little bit of shower and heavy rain activity in areas of southwest, southern Nebraska, and northern Kansas. A little bit of shower activity out west, but not much. As far as the severe weather threat today, like I said, western Montana could experience some strong storms today. Severe storms are possible. You'll definitely will get storms. Do they reach severe limits? We'll watch for that. That includes areas like Great Falls and Missoula. You guys tell me if I pronounced that right. I'm never afraid for you guys to correct me. I'm not the best name pronouncer or anything like that. So you guys know that by now who've been tuning in for a while. So I'm watching Southern Texas, but of course I'm watching a little bit more in detail my folks here in the Carolinas because I live here in Columbia, South Carolina. Watching Charlotte up to the Winston-Salem area, for example, Hickory, Lincolnton, basically all of the western half of North Carolina into the upstate of South Carolina. Really watching. Do I think it's going to upgrade to a slight risk? I don't think so, but you do have a solid level 1 out of 5, a marginal risk for severe storms. Tornado threat with all these risks. The only area that stands a chance to see a tornado is way down here deep in South Texas. 2% risk. Now, you can't rule it out anywhere else either, but 5% risk of wind and hail basically in all three of these areas. 5% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher, and then you got a 5% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in each one of these brown areas down here. The excessive rainfall outlook, kind of that same similar area that you need to watch. It has a slight risk, which is at least a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met. And, I'm not expecting a lot of rain to fall in this area today, but just the fact that you've seen so much rain, that's why it says risk of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles of any given points, which it really goes off how much rain have you seen lately. If you've seen a ton of rain, then if they're calling for a quarter to half inch of rain, even though it don't sound like a lot, that can cause flooding if you've seen several inches of rain over the last 7 days or something, for example. So hope that makes sense for you guys. Let's talk about the southeast first. We always take that broad look first, and then we'll zone into certain areas that need to be zoomed in on. We'll continue to look throughout the morning. We get to about midday, not a whole lot going on. Then it starts to heat up out there, and then bang, you get these pop-up downpours, even some storm action that's possible in Mississippi, Louisiana. I would say especially western Alabama, Arkansas, central to western Tennessee. You guys could use some rain in this region, just something to cool you guys down because I'm expecting some hot and humid conditions in this area. But you'll definitely get some pop-up, kind of popcorn, kind of shower storm activity. A typical summer flow out here will happen. I would say it could become widespread in Louisiana and Mississippi today, really anywhere. Anywhere in both of those states could see some storm activity. But then I'm watching this area of the Carolinas. Just go on and just zoom into this region. And this is almost the latest HRRR model. The latest one has not fully went through yet, but we'll start off. If you're wondering what time frame we're at, 5 a.m., which is in the past, now we're in the future here. 10 a.m., 11 a.m., lunchtime, nothing's really going on right now, which we typically won't expect. When you get into summer, June, July, August, even September, heck, even May, you got to get into the prime heating of the day for the atmosphere to become unstable before things begin to pop up. But 2 p.m., 3 p.m., you start to see a little shower activity around 3 p.m. Right outside of Boone, just east of Boone. And then you get some bigger storms. Normally in the summer in the Carolinas, the storms normally pop up in those mountainous regions of South Carolina, North Carolina first. And then they'll kind of drift outside the mountains into the Piedmont, the Midlands, whatever it may be, depending on what kind of flow it is. But by the time you get to 5 p.m., you could have some big storms possible, maybe just west or in and around the Winston-Salem area. Certainly be careful. These might drift into Lincolnton, around the Hickory region. But I'm watching in this area right here, kind of in what they call the triad of North Carolina, the western Piedmont of North Carolina. I think you could get 1 or 2 supercells, which means you can get 1 or 2 storms that they could be very photogenic. They could be very powerful, produce large hail. And I'm not going to say there's a 100% chance of this happening, but I'm really thinking it is. Right around dinner time, maybe when you're heading home from work, if you work an 8 to 5, 9 to 5 job, these storms could be quite intense. Charlotte, has been a city that's kind of feast or famine, right? I mean, you guys usually see no storms or like 2 or 3 of them in one day. That's kind of how it's been in Charlotte. Columbia, here in my neck of the woods, we haven't had one solid thunderstorm yet this year. It's been incredible how stormless we have been. I mean, even the National Weather Service in Columbia has mentioned it, that it is very odd and weird, the lack of storms that we have seen here in central South Carolina. But over the next 3 days, that could change. But we'll watch this lone storm. I mean, from, I would say, 4 to 8 p.m. to drift through the western sections of North Carolina. This could drift into Shelby, Gastonia, Lincolnton, even Charlotte. You know, if you're trying to pinpoint exactly where the storm is, it's going to be quite difficult. We'll also watch any storm development here in upstate South Carolina and even these areas in northern Georgia, eastern Tennessee. You can't completely rule out a storm or two just because this run of the HRRR model doesn't show it. Remember, these models are not to be looked at as a grand conclusion by any means. But I mean, this is around 9 p.m. You could have one of those classic, and I love these, right when the sun's going down, right when it's getting dark outside. One of those classic lightning shows, and it's possible, you know, that you could have some storms in upstate South Carolina, western South Carolina, could have some storms still in western North Carolina, and I'm really am pulling for these storms to drift into the Midlands. If they do, for you folks in the Midlands, maybe the PD region, these storms likely will not make it until, you know, you're probably asleep, or if you're a night owl, they will move through after probably the sun goes down in these regions. But we're watching this region. And then tomorrow we will have another chance, a little bit deeper into South Carolina. And of course, we'll talk about that in future videos. We'll mention it very briefly at the end of the video. But definitely watch out if you're in western North Carolina today. Don't let these storms catch you off guard. I can almost bet that you're going to have a supercell or two that's going to produce some pretty large hail. The Northeast, you're still getting these wraparound showers from this upper low that's basically trapped. It's just moving back and forth. It'll move east, it'll move west, it'll move back east, it'll drift south. And this is the case, you know, this is giving areas of Nova Scotia a lot of rain this afternoon. And then another wave of rain could move into the down east areas of Maine a little bit later tonight. But even areas where you're not seeing rain, like in eastern Mass and New Hampshire, the southern sections of Maine, you know, even down here to kind of Rhode Island, Connecticut, there could definitely be some drizzle falling throughout the day, light rain falling. And this will continue. This is going to be the general pattern here in the far northeast over the next couple of days until we get rid of this upper low. But basically this upper low, the winds on this side are coming out the north, right? And then they come out the north. And then on this side of the low, they come out the northwest. So the wildfires are ongoing, I believe, up here. You guys in Canada, if you're watching, correct me if I'm wrong, up here in Quebec. And they're up here somewhere. So this is the smoke, and you know, I'm not an expert on smoke. I know that it's pretty cut and dry, right? I mean, it's smoke which is generated off wildfires, but I do know that it kind of correlates with the weather because, you know, as the smoke tries to get higher up in the atmosphere, it gets pushed by weather currents, winds aloft. So, and it makes sense that this smoke from the wildfires up in Canada is getting pulled down into the northeast because this upper low is generating winds out the north on the back side of it. So these winds are coming in from the north, moving south. And then as we get into around, you know, 7, 8, 9 p.m. tonight, I mean, I would watch if you're in like Watertown, kind of the northern portions of New York State, western New York State, you know, Buffalo, Syracuse, thick smoke could really move in right as the sun is setting, and you could eventually wake up tomorrow morning with a thick layer of smoke for basically New England, the Northeast. It could be quite smoky tomorrow morning, kind of starting really getting thick this afternoon, this evening into tomorrow morning. Basically, the more vibrant, bright colors you see here, the thicker the smoke in general. So it's very interesting. Well, I'll be interested to see any kind of pictures today in the Northeast. The South Central U.S., kind of a complex pattern. It's going to be kind of one of those days where you're going to yell at the weatherman for being wrong or right or whatever it may be, but you stop it right here. This is around 4 p.m. Central Time, anywhere from southern Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas. It's kind of certain, I would say western, southwest sections of Missouri. Anybody could see a pop-up shower or storm. It's kind of one of those days where you might only have anywhere from a 20 to a 40% chance of showers and storms, but, you know, you could somehow get an inch of rain today. But, you know, it's just, as you can tell, there's nothing going on really. 12 p.m., 1 p.m., and then bang, everything fires up just from general surface heating. Temperatures warm up, the atmosphere destabilizes, becomes unstable, and then you get showers and storms the rest of the afternoon and evening. And then with the loss of daytime heating, you get to, you know, about midnight and after, everything kind of falls apart and there's nothing left. So hopefully that makes sense. But anybody in this area, guys, everybody. That's why if you look at the Storm Prediction Center, this entire area is in light green, which means a general risk of thunderstorms. So everybody in the entire map I just showed. So, but I can tell you, certain areas could see a lot of rainfall. Certain areas already seeing rain, but along the Texas coastline, I would watch for more of a consolidated area of showers and storms, and maybe even some severe weather here in deep in South Texas, where certain areas could see a half inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch of rain, and then maybe rain falling on top of already saturated soil in kind of eastern, northeast New Mexico and areas of the panhandle of Texas, where, even a 1/4 to a half inch of rain could cause runoff and cause flooding. The north central U.S., same kind of deal as the south central U.S. Pop-up shower and storm activity is possible. Probably not quite as widespread, but I would favor kind of the northern half of Minnesota, the eastern Dakotas, but you could still get it in eastern Nebraska, which we just talked about. But I would say this is going to be more consolidated, more widespread for central to northern Minnesota. Today could have some shower storm activity up here, some heavy rain, then an area, maybe some downpours could develop in central Wisconsin. And then as we move into the overnight hours, you could be waking up tomorrow or into the wee hours of morning to some widespread showers, some heavier shower activity in kind of eastern Iowa, maybe more so eastern Minnesota, and then the southern half of Wisconsin, northern Illinois. These are areas you kind of need the rain, right? So hopefully this is something we do wake up to tomorrow morning, but you could wake up to some heavier rain activity in this region. So the HRRR model likes the idea of that. Out here in the Rockies, the western U.S., another day of widespread shower and storm activity. Some of this heavier rain could develop more so in central Nevada today, but still southern Nevada, not much, staying dry, warm. But certainly in northern California, some shower and maybe some heavier. My default thing to say is shower and storm activity, but of course in certain areas this is just going to be in the form of heavy rain. But right along the Front Range, you could certainly get some heavier rain today. Watch out, Denver, even into, let's back this up here, Wyoming, not as widespread as the last few days, but you could certainly see some activity. I would say far eastern Wyoming will be more dry today than maybe central and western Wyoming, but really watching western Montana today. I think you'll have a little bit of a spin out there that's kind of centered over Idaho, but this will kind of be the igniter, if you will, with this upper low of numerous showers and storms, some that could be strong to severe, really in western, kind of west central Montana today. So be aware of that. Some big time storm activity is possible in some of those higher elevations. Temperatures today, it'll remain cool, deep up in the northeast. Temperatures only in the 50s. Boston will be raw today, only in the 50s. But you don't have to go very far west to kind of be out of the influence of this upper low. It warms into the 60s to 70s. Say one of the warmer portions of the country today is the southern and central Mississippi Valley will warm well into the 90s. Good news for you guys, though, you could have numerous pop-up showers and storms in this region to kind of cool you down. Starting to cool back down for Illinois, Indiana, but still pretty warm into the 80s and still pretty warm all the way up into the eastern sections of the Dakotas, western Minnesota, where you guys could probably soar all the way into the low 90s before numerous showers and storms pop up and cool you down. But still under the influence of this kind of upper low up here that's helping to bring kind of cooler, slightly cooler than average temperatures all the way down to the Carolinas, even cooler all the way down to Florida today. But you look at the western U.S. and still a tick below average out here, with just these upper lows that continue to keep you guys a little below average, but definitely not cold by any means. Still warm up here in the northern Rockies and just the northern plains where you're under the influence of this upper ridging, this omega block up in Canada. Temperatures well into the 80s in a lot of areas in Montana, except the higher elevations. But as we get into tomorrow, the return of the southern high plains severe weather threat may begin, but one thing we'll watch is this is kind of new. The western U.S., some areas could see some severe storms in southern Idaho, even areas of southeastern Oregon, the entire northern half of Nevada, portions of California, and northwest Utah. But I'm also watching my folks here in the Carolinas, especially South Carolina. Maybe a bigger day tomorrow with a marginal risk of severe storms. It's starting to get into that time of the year where almost every day you have a marginal risk of severe storms. But here you go, you get into day 3. I could see this upgrading to a slight risk. You're going to have the return of those high plains storms, and kind of the same similar pattern, but just the location geographically changes for each area. But another day of severe storms, potentially more so in the eastern Carolinas, eastern South Carolina. So interesting next couple days ahead. I could see some of these risks upgrading, and we'll see what happens though. Appreciate you guys tuning in this morning. You guys have a great day, and the plan is to make a video tonight. But of course, remember guys, we're getting into that time of the year where I'm not going to make a video every evening. I know you guys understand, but I always feel like it's need to explain it. But it's that time of the year where, there's no point in repeating the same information over and over again. It's not like there's a major hurricane to talk about, a breakdown, a major winter storm. Of course, we're in winter, we're not going to have that, or some kind of severe weather outbreak. It's just that time of the year where things kind of calm down until they gradually kind of build back up for hurricane season. So let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy the calm weather. And I know I got a lot of things to do around the house. So I know you guys probably do too. But God bless all y'all. Have a great day. And I'll be with you guys this evening, most likely.